1, 2, is this on?
We all know the 3 count spells the end of a match in wrestling. If the predetermined finish occurs and the referee makes the fall, then the match has ended as planned. But sometimes it's not always as clear cut as that. And sometimes wrestlers can actually kick out of a pin when they weren't originally supposed to, or not kick out at all with the ref still only counting to 2.
He may have him, King. Look at the leg. One. That was a breakdown, King.
And this can happen for a variety of different reasons. So today, we'll be taking a look at 10 unplanned and botched kickouts that occurred in wrestling. First up, we go back to Royal Rumble 2000 in Madison Square Garden as Triple H put up the WWF Championship against Cactus Jack in a legendary street fight. Triple H was due to get the win following the pedigree, a move that had only been kicked out of once at the time. However, Cactus Jack wanted the game to hit him with the pedigree onto the thumbtacks to finish the match. So after the first pedigree only got 2, Triple H would argue with the referee Earl Hebner in the corner, allowing Cactus to get back to his feet, only for him to walk into a second pedigree, hit onto the tacks this time, which got the 3, allowing the game to retain the WWF title. Foley kicking out on the fly proved to be a good decision, as it gave us an iconic spot to end an iconic match. Now, while back-to-back finishers being hit added to that match, we can't say the same for our next example, as The Rock wrestled Kurt Angle for the WWF Championship at No Way Out 2001. The stakes were high, as the winner would walk into the WrestleMania 17 main event as WWF Champion. So when The Rock hit the rock bottom, we all believed he was headed to WrestleMania as the champ. But surprisingly, this was not the finish of the match, despite the fact it was clearly meant to be. Instead of counting all the way to 3, referee Earl Hebner stopped his count at 2, signalling that Angle had got the shoulder up, much to the confusion of the fans who all thought the match was over. Now, even though it wasn't 100% clear to those watching given the camera angle, in reality Kurt hadn't got his shoulder up. Hebner had messed up thinking Angle was about to kick out, so when he didn't, Earl instead acted as if he had.
Earl probably thought that was the first rock bottom. I believe we hit a rock bottom earlier in the match and Earl forgot. So the finish was supposed to be the second rock bottom, and Earl thought the second one was the first. The Rock was pissed.
The Rock would then perform a second rock bottom.
He picked me up, rock bottomed me, and told Earl, count the motherfucking finish.
And Earl would do just that, with The Rock getting the win and winning the WWF title. Both Rock and Angle were upset with the botch finish, but despite this, they still had an excellent match and the fans went home happy. Now, while Hebner should have known the finish, we can probably forgive the referee in our next example for not counting the fall given the circumstances, as Chris Jericho took on Neville in a match on Raw in 2016. Early into the match, Neville would injure himself when sliding underneath Jericho. Neville would still manage to execute some moves, but eventually collapsed to his knees. Jericho, realizing Neville was hurt, called an audible and looked to immediately end the match with a roll-up. However, referee Charles Robinson was unaware of Neville's injury, so therefore did not count to 3, as this was not the planned finish, despite the fact Neville didn't kick out.
Hold on here. Again, Jericho rolling up Neville here. Shoulders down. Does he have him? No. Kick out at 2.
The ref's decision to not make the pin enraged Jericho, who then began to get in Robinson's face, with Y2J screaming how Neville was hurt.
He's hurt. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Wow. No need for that.
Chris would then get physical with a hard shove, leaving the ref no choice but to call for the bell, with Neville getting the win via disqualification.
He doesn't know he's hurt and he thinks that I'm pushing him and making him look like a bitch. Right. I am starting to push him around like a bitch. We're literally like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. This is on Raw, live TV.
Neville would ultimately suffer a fractured left ankle, which sidelined him for 4 months. The referees may have been the ones to screw up in our last 2 examples, but our next moment rests on the shoulders of the wrestler, as we take a look at a triple threat match that occurred on SmackDown in late 2016, when Baron Corbin, Dolph Ziggler and WWE Champion AJ Styles wrestled each other with the title on the line. Deep into the match, Ziggler would hit his patented super kick to Styles. Dolph would then go for the cover. The next planned spot was to see Baron Corbin breaking up the pin. However, Corbin would be late getting into the ring, meaning Styles had to get his shoulder up since this wasn't the planned finish.
We got a new champ! You gotta be kidding me!
This was one instance where things not going to plan actually worked out. The same probably can't be said for this next match, which was a fatal 4-way for the WCW Championship taking place on Nitro in 1999, pitting Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Goldberg, DDP and Ric Flair against each other. Late in the bout, Goldberg would hit his spear and jackhammer combination to Hogan. Hollywood would kick out of the spear as planned, but the cover following the jackhammer was set to be interrupted by an interfering Kevin Nash. However, Nash would be late entering the ring and wasn't going to get there in time to intercept the pinfall. This meant Hogan was forced to kick out.
Nash is left our set, Tony. Nash coming to the ring. And Kevin Nash.
This was significant as it was the first time that Goldberg's jackhammer had been kicked out of. This could have been saved for a bigger stage and played out as a massive near fall, but instead it came about due to a botch and didn't get anywhere near the reaction it could have given the circumstances. Nash might have been at fault for the last pinfall, but he would be the victim of our next unplanned kickout. It went down when Big Sexy challenged Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship inside Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood 2003, with Mick Foley acting as a special guest referee. It was a brutal, bloody encounter in which all three men involved bled heavily. Foley would be bumped numerous times in the match, but got up each time, including towards the end of the encounter, where he would take a nasty bump against the cell wall. Nash would deliver the jackknife. Foley would spring back into the ring to make the count, but could only make it to 2 as the game kicked out. Foley was actually meant to stay down, while Nash was to attempt to cover. He would then abandon the pin to see where Mick was, but since the hardcore legend leaped back into the ring to make the count, Triple H then had to kick out, allowing the rest of the match to play out as planned, with the game retaining his title following a sledgehammer shot and pedigree. Perhaps Foley jumped the gun, but our next moment is a case of a wrestler missing their cue altogether, and this happened in the main event of WrestleMania 8 when Psycho Sid battled Hulk Hogan. It looked all set to be business as usual for Hogan as he would hit the leg drop onto Sid. Hulk would make the cover, and just when we all thought the ref would slam the mat for 3, Sid powered out, becoming the first person to kick out of Hogan's leg drop in the WWF.
It's all over. No.
And this would prove to happen in almost identical circumstances to when Hogan became the first person to kick out of Goldberg's jackhammer, as we discussed earlier. Following the leg drop kick out, Hogan, Sid and Harvey Whippleman then did some stalling until Papa Shango finally made his way out. Shango had got a late cue from the gorilla position and was meant to be the one to break up Hogan's pin following the leg drop, thus causing a DQ.
I'm sitting behind the curtain. They said, do not go until we give you the cue. I'm waiting for Gorilla to give me the cue, and all of a sudden Gorilla goes, oh, go. Well, he gave me the cue late. I got a late cue.
Shango eventually managed to enter the ring and attacked Hogan with the help from Sid until the Ultimate Warrior made his big return, making the save for Hogan in the process. As the two former WrestleMania opponents stood tall to end the show, Warrior's return saved what otherwise would have been a flat finish to the show following the botched conclusion of the match. Next, we have an example of a wrestler changing the finish on the fly in order to protect themselves. This took place during a WWF event in Toronto in 1989, where Bret Hart wrestled Dino Bravo. During the match, Bret would suffer a broken sternum and broken ribs after being knocked from the apron onto the steel guardrail. Bret laid on the floor until Bravo then threw him back into the ring and would go for the cover to seemingly finish the match. Bret, however, got his foot on the rope and would explain in the Wrestling with Shadows documentary how Bravo was someone the Hitman didn't want to lose to.
1, 2, and I put my foot on the ropes, which was my own dumb move, but I just refused to lose to this guy.
Bret instead rolled back out of the ring and took the count-out loss, eventually leaving the arena in an ambulance.
He stomped me a couple more times, and eventually got myself counted out, and they took me out of there in an ambulance.
Here we have another instance of an injury changing the finish of a match, and this came when Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn made their in-ring debut in the WWF in a match where they were booked to win versus the New Age Outlaws on SmackDown in early 2000. With the match coming to a close, Guerrero was able to hit his signature frog splash, but upon landing, Eddie dislocated his elbow. Now it's unclear as to what exactly was said between Eddie going for the pin until the Road Dogg pulled the referee out of the ring, but what we do know is that Guerrero at some point panicked due to his injury and asked that he be pinned to end the match, and this is exactly what happened, with the Road Dogg entering the ring, getting the 3 count despite not being the legal man. This would change the course of not just this particular episode of SmackDown, but the entire Radical storyline that had just begun, as Eddie and Saturn's planned victory was to set up the main event of the show where Triple H took on Chris Benoit, and if Benoit win, then all 4 members of the Radicals would earn WWF contracts. But since Guerrero and Saturn lost, the Radicals were now at 0-2 in losses due to X-Pac defeating Dean Malenko earlier in the show, meaning there was no chance of the 4 men winning contracts since they had to win 2 out of 3 matches in order to do so. The taping of SmackDown would be halted for nearly 40 minutes as Vince McMahon and the bookers in the back tried to figure out how they would conclude the show after being dealt with such a curveball. Benoit and Triple H would wrestle their match anyway, with the game getting the win. The Radicals would eventually earn their contracts the next week. Our final unplanned kickout, or lack thereof, comes from SummerSlam 2001, when The Rock fought Booker T for the WCW Championship. With the match in full flow, The Rock managed to hit a DDT and would immediately go for the pin afterwards in what was supposed to be a routine near fall. However, Booker forgot to kick out as he lay there limp on the canvas, but luckily, referee Charles Robinson didn't count to 3. Instead, stopping at 2 and stating that Booker had got his shoulder up, even though it was clear that he hadn't. Booker had simply just forgotten to kick out, but it didn't affect the match, which continued as planned, with The Rock eventually picking up the win to become the new WCW champion. And that brings us to the end of this video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you like this video, be sure to check out our video on 10 times a wrestler forgot a spot during a match. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.